You're listening to Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis. Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis is brought to you by...
You know, there are few relationships more solid than the bond between a man and his barber. For years, I've gotten my cut with Gene the Barber. Gene has been cutting my hair for more than 20 years. Call him directly at 240-687-7253 and make an appointment. Gene the Barber, 240-687-7253.
A Squared Home and Office Solutions is the go-to source for home or office network and audiovisual solutions. We can help with smart home integration, wireless networking, media rooms, security systems, and more. We will link technology to your lifestyle seamlessly. Visit homeandofficesolutions.com for more info.
You're listening to Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis. Here's your host, Kurtis Cross.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Conversations with Kurtis. I'm your host, Kurtis Cross, and as always, I'm excited to be here with you today. Today, we're getting into some great content, a great conversation with a young lady who I am dying for you guys to meet. You see her on the screen, but I'm going to tell you, when I look to do these podcasts, I look to find great content, interesting people. And Julie, we're going to get to you in just a second, I promise. But she's going to tell you, her and I had a connection instantly that we are here for a reason. Let's get into that conversation in a minute. But first, I want to thank our sponsors, Gene the Barber and A Squared Home and Office Solutions. Be sure to connect with me socially at Kurtis Talks on Instagram and Twitter and www.kurtistalks.com. Also, our other podcasts are Crosstalk, the Kurtis and Paula Show, a lifestyle, love, marriage, and parenthood podcast. You'll hear about the day-to-day life of me and Paula. Take It to Yo with Turner and O'Neill is our local and national sports podcast. We've had some great guests on that show. We had the NFL Players Association president. We've had NBA, all-star guys, rookies of the year. We do it all on that podcast. That's with Coach Steve Turner and Casey O'Neill. Ramblin' Teachers is a local teacher talk podcast hosted by a few friends of the Crosstalk family. And of course, the Midnight Truck Stop and 911 Radio. Both of these podcasts are hosted by Big T and the Blue Knight out on the left coast, the west coast out of LA. You'll hear stories from truckers, 911 calls, law enforcement officers, and a host of interesting guests. All of these podcasts can be found on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. Look, wherever you get your podcast content is where you can listen. Now, I want to thank you again for listening to Crosstalk Conversations with Kurtis. And I thank you for joining today's conversation. Let's unwrap this gem of a guest that I have today. I want to welcome to the conversation, Julie Paulston. Julie, how's it going, young lady?
I'm so excited. It's seriously, like I saw the thing that you put out and I was like, oh, I kind of dig that. And then of course, my brain went, ooh, let's do the research. And I was like, okay, I just gotta message him. And so I sent you a voicemail to hopefully stand out from the rest of the crowd.
Julie, I've been looking forward to this podcast all day. I feel like if you and I were in the same city, we'd be having lunch having this podcast right now. You are going to be one of my favorites. I know it, and you should never say that, but I just did, and I can't take it back, and I won't take it back. Julie, I love you. Let's get into this.
Yay.
As it is written, because we have to be formal a little bit, I am a transformational life coach who empowers women to rise from the ashes of their lives to reclaim their divine inner phoenix. I've made the journey from the ashes numerous times and have developed tools and systems to be able to rise and thrive. This is the story I need to tell. Julie, I don't want you to tell them about all the ashes that you've risen from yet, because we're gonna compartmentalize that. We're gonna get to that little by little. But Julie, how's it going? Tell me about Pensacola. What's new in your life? Let's start with that.
Oh my goodness, so many things. Like just before I jumped on here, one of the things that absolutely fascinates me is the brain and how it works and how we go from ashes into success and what are the steps that we can take to get there. So I'm getting certified in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, to be able to help the women that I support and empower. But today was an amazing day. It's like 75 degrees. I went for a walk on the beach this morning. So
isn't that every day? You walk on the beach every day, don't you?
Yeah, it's probably about 3 to 6 days a week. It depends on the weather. If we got thunderstorms, I'm not trying to be a lightning rod. So there's that.
Right.
But
So we have 77 here today. The kids were doing some yard work. We've got carry out coming tonight. We're going to eat on the patio with a fire. So that's what we're dealing with today. I mean, last week this time it was, I had to wear Under Armour and sweaters, and now I'm in shorts and a polo. So that's what we're dealing with here. But your weather is warmer more of the time than mine. But I say Pensacola, but you and some of your friends and some locals, where do you actually live?
I
What do they call it?
actually, I live in Pensacola, but I'm more towards, it's called Perdido, and that's Johnson Beach area. That's where I go to hang out. Pensacola is big. We have big old NAS, the Naval Air Station that's here. And the coolest thing ever about living here is that I'm glad we did this at this time, because earlier you get the Blue Angels flying over and they will rattle your windows, but it's probably my most favorite time of the day
Sure.
is when they go flying over the house.
But you told me when you moved there, there's a nickname for where you live, right?
Oh, that, yeah. So when I moved here, I told everybody, I'm like, oh, I'm moving to Pensacola. And they're like, oh, you moved to LA. And I'm like, no, I'm as far away from LA as you can possibly imagine. They're like, no, you moved to LA. I'm like, no, I moved to Pensacola. And they're like, no, LA. And I wasn't going to argue with them. I'm like, why are you calling it LA? And they're like, Julie, you're 3 miles from Alabama. We just call it Lower Alabama.
There you go.
I'm like, no, I don't live in Lower Alabama. I live in Pensacola.
So I enjoyed hearing that when you told me that. Julie, as most people know who listen and view my podcast, I want to tell stories. And I heard your story, and there are so many layers to your story that suggest success, that suggest perseverance, that suggest that wonderful, wonderful art I see on your wall. Before I jump into the conversation, wow, talk to us about where you got that from.
So when I launched my brand, so many people were like, "Oh, Julie, the lotus, it blooms in the mud," and I was like, "I'm kind of a girly girl about that, and I don't want to come out of the mud. No disrespect to a lotus. However, I have a little bit. I don't know if you noticed, a little bit of a fiery personality." And so for me, being a phoenix rising up in flames and burning away that no longer serves us, I found that online and I was like, oh, I have to have that. And
Absolutely.
so it's mine. Yep, it's all over.
We own it, and it speaks to you. Now we're having some fun, but let's have some more fun. Tell me where you came from. You were an educator. You're in Fortune 500 company. Talk to me about that process and how what could have been tragedy turned into what I see behind you, so to speak.
So I started with the company back in 2012, and I started as a stylist. And before that, I was a beauty school teacher. I do hair and train and teach stylists. And I became an educator for them. And then they asked me to pilot a program. And I'm originally from the West Coast. So I'm from the Oregon, Washington area. So they picked me up, lock, stock, and barrel, moved me to Chicago. I loved it, except for it snowed and it was really cold. And I loved piloting the program. It was amazing. It did very, very well. And then when they decided to release it nationwide, they said, hey, do you know anybody that, wants to be in Pensacola? This girl right here,
Yeah.
who's got two thumbs and wants to go to Pensacola. This girl right here. So I moved to Pensacola, and then COVID hit, and I went from being an outside educator, being out and about and traveling all over Alabama and the Panhandle, and being stuck in my house. And depression hit, and my depression turned to aggression in my communication style. And so we separated ways, which is a polite way of saying they decided that they did not need me anymore. So I got fired, which when it happened, I was devastated. I thought, what am I going to do? Because my whole identity was wrapped up in this company. Right. I mean, if you asked me, Julie, what do you do? The first thing I would have told you was about my job and what I did. And when they did it, when they decided to part ways, I own my stuff. I know what I did. It ended up being the best thing that could have ever happened to me. It was in the moment, and for, I call it the trifecta of unfortunate events, with my wrist and then losing my job. And then, the trifecta, I thought I was done and over, but I realized that I have the power to rise. I have that power to become whatever it is that I want to become. I've known it for years. but I actually had to put it into action. I had to actually walk the walk and talk the talk and actually do what I said that I could do.
Right. So losing the job and COVID and all of that, that was one step in a direction that did not favor you, but in the end, it may have. And then we have the wrist. Talk to me about the wrist, because we have a few
So
steps here.
yeah, so I call it the trifecta of unfortunate events. It started July 11th. I just had a really bad day, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, my husband and I are taking the boat out. You want to go out?" And I was like, "Sure, I can work out on a boat." And so we were out there, and I was sitting out on the bow, and I went to swing my feet around and got bounced and landed and broke my wrist in 3 places. And of
So
course, it was my dominant hand, so I couldn't type, I couldn't write, and yeah. So then August 27th is when I lost my job. So on July 11th, I broke my wrist. August 27th, I lost my job.
and there is a trifecta, which means there's a third one. Talk to me about that.
So September 15th, I met this gal. Her name is Hurricane Sally. She came in to Pensacola, and when Sally first was out in the Gulf, it looked like she was going to go here, and then she was going to go there, and when everybody joked around like Sally was drunk, she didn't know which direction she was going.
Right.
Well, it got real bad because Jim Cantori, wherever he goes with national weather, is where you don't want to be.
Exactly.
And so it was a category 1. It wasn't supposed to be that big of a deal. And then somebody said Jim Cantori's out on Pensacola Beach. And by that time, it was too late to go anywhere. And at that time, I was like, but it's a category 1. Everybody's telling me it's going to be okay. And then by 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, I had 3 feet of water in my house, and I lost everything I owned.
Everything.
Yep.
And so there's the trifecta. That's what happened. I can imagine that really weighs on you, and I can imagine that puts you in a headspace that is not a positive place. So how do we deal with that? How do we, what is that like day to day when you're in that place? From July 11th to August 27th, maybe you said.
Well, it was July 11th, August 27th, and September 15th.
Right. So boom, boom, boom. 3 months in a row. Supposed to be enjoying Pensacola Beach, but 3 months in a row that happens. And talk to me about where Julie is in September.
So after I lost my job, I had this feeling that it's going to be okay, but then my logical brain went, it's not going to be okay. You have to get a job. And so I was trying so hard to contact people in the industry, and nobody was hiring. And then when Sally hit, there's something about when I woke up in the middle of the night, something woke me up, and I jumped up and my feet hit water. And if you've never been in a hurricane before, I've never been in a hurricane before. I'm from the West Coast in Chicago. I mean, I don't know what a hurricane is.
Right.
It instills a panic in you that sends you back to a place that is not a pleasant place. And then after the hurricane happened, the next day I came back to the house, and I had to wade through, like, I'm looking out my window right now, and I remember just walking through like a foot and a half of water just to get to the house. And you open that door and you can see the water line along the wall that was like 3.5 feet. And then you look at all your things, and you just hit this, I call it the swirling vortex of doom, because it just sucks you down. And it was really rough. I think the saving grace for me is my mom had her 80th birthday, and we had already had plans to go to Arizona, but I had to borrow flip-flops because I had no shoes. Like, when I say I lost everything, I lost everything. I had two pieces of furniture and a rug, and the only reason why I had it is because in the middle of the night when we evacuated, I put it up on top of the kitchen table. But you get in a place that when I was out at my mom's house, I was there with my brother and my sister and my mom. And I just didn't think about it. Honestly, Kurtis, I didn't think about it. If I didn't think about it, it wasn't real.
Right.
If I don't think about it, it's not real. It's fine. I have a sweatshirt that says it's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine. And that was what I kept saying in my head until I got home and reality hit me that I was, for all intents and purposes, homeless.
Right.
If it wasn't for my friend Dawn and her heart and opening her home to me, I don't know where I would have gone.
Wow. So we have that trifecta.
Mhm.
You obviously rise. Still, I rise. You will always do that. I've known you the equivalent of about 2.5 or 3 weeks, but I know who you are. I can feel who you are. For 31 years, talk to me about what the last 31 years has meant to you.
So I've been sober for it'll be 31 years, August 29th.
Okay.
So for me, having have gone through the things that I went through, I started drinking when I was 12. And I talk to people about that. And I'm like, but it's funny because I had a great childhood. My parents were amazing people. I just happened to be the black sheep of the family, and I wore my armor well, and I embraced it. And then I got sober when I was 21. And so there were multiple times in my life where when I went through Sally, I'd been homeless before. So I knew what being homeless was like. This was different. When I was homeless 30 years ago, it was literally sleeping in doorways. It was literally going to find an after party just so that I could have some place to sleep. And going through sobriety, you learn what you're made of. And you learn that everything in life is a conscious choice. You can choose every day to be bitter or better. And there are days that I chose to be bitter. There were days that I sat there and was like, why me? Why did this happen to me? And then there's days that you choose to be better and you make that choice and say, you know what? Life might have knocked me down, but I'm going to stand up, look at you and go, life, you hit like a bitch. So let's go. Let's go.
I love it. I love every bit of that. So you got through Hurricane Sally. You got through, Dawn, who had to help you. You had flip flops. That's it, because everything you have is gone. We broke our wrists. We lost our job. COVID hit. Why did you continue? Why did you press on? What did you find within yourself to press on? You did that. You're here right now, and we're going to talk about Divine Phoenix Rising, because that is this part of our story, which is just a fabulous story. But why? Why did you not give up?
So here's a funny story. So I used to be 280 pounds. And I discovered CrossFit, and I loved CrossFit. And so I was doing this workout. It's called Murph. They do it every Memorial Day. And it's you run a mile, you do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then you go run another mile. It's insane.
Okay.
Well, my middle son, I invited him to come to me doing Murph. And he showed up, and I remember I was in the middle of my push-ups. And he was a basketball star and all that kind of stuff. And I'd always told him that he wasn't allowed to quit. I'm like, Malcolm, we don't quit. We're Paulstons. We don't quit. Well, I was in the middle of Murph and I was doing push-ups and I was like, I'm done. I'm tapping out. I can't do this. I can't. And Malcolm got down in my face and he grabbed my chin and he said, you are my mother. You gave me the name of Paulston and you don't quit. Now get your ass up and do some push-ups. And when all of this happened, the first thing I thought about were my kids and my grandkids.
Right.
Like, how can I be an example to them and to the other people in my life if I quit?
Right.
I mean, I've attempted suicide in my life, so I know what that dark place is like. I know how those shoes feel, and I know how your feet feel there. This wasn't even close to that, but it would have been really super easy for me to just go find some little job and just kind of make ends meet. But at the end of the day, who am I to do that when I've taught my kids that you never quit, you never give up, and you chase you just choose your dreams every single day.
Wow. Wow. I think people, we can sit with that for a quick second, because you had every reason to not keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Life is, they're sucker punching you left and right. This is what I'm hearing so far. And you have found reasons each day to rise. Your son did that for you. What is he doing now, by the way? We never got into that conversation.
It's so funny. So I have 3 kids. My oldest is 31. My middle son is 29 and my daughter is 28. She's my foster daughter.
Okay.
Malcolm today was his last day. He just got a brand new job and he called me today and he's like, Mom, I got it. And At 29 years old, this kid's making over $40 an hour.
Good for him.
And so he started at $9 an hour 7.5 years ago, and now he's making 40. So when I look at my kids, I'm so proud of them. And like I said, I have to be an example for them, and I have to be an example for my grandkids. So all my kids are doing amazing things. I'm just so proud of them.
Now, are they local to you? I don't even know.
I wish.
Sorry.
That's all right. No, it's good. It's like I told them, I choose to live on the East Coast, quote unquote, the East Coast, even though I'm on the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
They live in Oregon and Washington. My son, Malcolm, and Tori live in Oregon. And then my oldest, Brett, lives up in Washington.
All right. So, define Phoenix Rising. How did we get there? Because there was a contest involved, right?
So before Sally happened, I had been online, and big surprise. So I was on Facebook and I saw this contest. I don't even know. Now I look back and it was divine guidance that got me there.
Right.
And this contest was go live on Facebook every day, and you can win this contest of having somebody coach you about creating a brand, starting a company, and all that. And so I was like, oh, going live on Facebook, that's easy. I love going live on Facebook. So I did it, and I did it even in the hurricane. I remember when Sally was coming in, it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm standing out on my front porch and I'm like, oh, hi guys, look, this is a hurricane.
Right.
Sally was like, oh, I'm going to show you a hurricane. And, but I won that contest, and they told me when I was in Arizona at my mom's house, and it was exactly the right people came into my life at the right time. And I knew that the Phoenix resonated with me, and it was because of divine guidance and timing that I got there. So it's Divine Phoenix Rising, because I will always rise.
You always will. And how do folks find you? We're going to talk about that in the end, but website, how do they find you?
So I'm working on my website. The best place to find me, honestly, is Facebook. It's like, that's my favorite place. My kids tease me. They're like, Mom, you're so old. I'm like, I know. I'm on Instagram. I'm getting better, but the best way to find me is on Facebook.
And I'm typing it in right now because I think we are connected on Instagram.
Yes, we are.
Let me go ahead and pull this up now because I want to talk about that. So what do you do? What is Divine Phoenix Rising?
So I'm a transformational life coach. It was funny because when I first started this, all the imposter syndrome and, who are you to do this? And why would you start this kind of a business? I've been a mentor and a coach to over 1,000 different stylists for the company that I used to work for. So for me, it's a natural progression in what I used to do. In fact, I did it for free. I coached for in the stylist realm, but I also did mindset with a lot of the stylists. And so it just was a natural progression for me. So I have programs I have a 6-week program for women that I empower them to rise out of the ashes of their lives. Mm-hmm. And it's a 6-week program. It's phenomenal. The transformations that I see, I don't say it's phenomenal because it's my program. I say it's phenomenal because I watch these women literally shift in front of my eyes and discover who they are at their core, and they remember who they were before the world told them who they needed to be. And so when they regain that, it's just like I just love it. It just fires me up.
And why did we lose that? What are they? Did they get lost along the way? Did they fall victim to the ants marching syndrome, where we just march as we're supposed to in the lane we're supposed to, or why did they lose themselves?
I think there's a couple reasons for it. I think number one is when you were a kid, everybody always asks you, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to, or what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be? And so we equate a job with what we're going to be when we're growing up. When in actuality, what we want to be is happy. What we want to be is free. What we want to be is fulfilled. And what we want to be is confident. What we want to do is our job. And with women, a lot of times we fall into the trap of we're too tall, we're too short, we're too fat, we're too thin, we're too light, we're too dark, we're too loud, we're too quiet. We're always too much of something. And we allow society to tell us what we're too much of. And we have to take care of everybody else, and we put our own needs and wants and desires and who we are at our core, we just kind of push it aside. And so it's time to, and I'm not saying women rise up and take over the world. What I'm saying is remember who you are, because when you remember who you are, you bring the people that support that into your world.
So here is the fascinating thing. A lot of my podcasts will come back to a lot of what you're speaking to here. First of all, when you meet someone for the first time, quite often the question you ask is, what do you do? Because somehow we, in the absence of anything else to say, we must equate someone's success to what they do. Oh, I'm the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or I own this business, or I'm an MD, or I'm an engineer. And those things equal success. Whereas we would look differently, moreover than not, it's not everyone, but we'd look differently if someone said, oh, I'm an administrative assistant, or, oh, something that, I'm not necessarily a janitor, but I'm a building services person. They would look at that person differently. But we define, the success of someone, and if they're up to snuff with who we want to engage with, by what they do. And we can fall victim to that. And I think those who fall most victim to that are those who have not defined their personal and professional goals. And they haven't defined what is happy. What makes you happy? For me, what makes me happy is knowing that when you and I are done, I'm going to have dinner with my kids, not the next contract I book or the next like I get on Instagram. I mean, all that stuff is cool. And, unfortunately, we have to operate within those social media platforms to expose our business and to grow in that way. But I think people have not necessarily defined what will make them happy. So what do we default to? What does society tell us will make us happy? And that's more commas and more dollar signs in our bank account. And at the end of the day, you can be very unfulfilled and be very rich financially. So
Yeah.
I think we do fall victim to that. I also think that, I am the problem. And people who look like me are the problem. And that's men in general, because we tell you that you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too this, you're too that. And what measure are we trying to rise up to? We're trying to rise up to perhaps someone's definition of, like you said, you were 280 pounds. Why was that not beautiful? And I would say probably the majority of folks' eyes. Why? Because she's heavy? Why? Because her hair looks different? Why? Because she's too tall? I just, we can get into a whole podcast about that. And, I just wonder, I told my daughter the other day, she got a magazine called like Teen Girl's Life or something it was.
Ugh.
And I, looked at that. And I did tell her, I said, there are people in this magazine who do look like you, but 25 years ago, you wouldn't, that was not the standard of beauty. My daughter's mixed. My wife is white. I'm black. That was not the standard of beauty. You had to go to a black or people of color magazine to see someone who looked like you. So it's interesting what we define as successful, or what we define as beauty, or what we define as happy. And I'm just not sure that we've all collectively defined what that is. So we're grasping at straws or trying to find what that is. And oftentimes we can spend a lifetime trying to figure out what those things are and not realizing, cliche term here, that it's the journey that matters in the end. It's nice to have that journey to head toward, but it's the journey that matters in the end. So what, I'm afraid of this question and answer because it can go a million ways, but what lights you up? I know there's a million things. Talk to me about what lights you up.
Seeing the people that I love happy.
Okay.
And what really lights me up is making sure that I'm happy. Making sure that in my life that I'm doing things that are taking care of my soul. Like I have self-care Saturday and soul care Sunday. Those are my days. And self-care Saturday usually is me going to just hang out with friends, or if I'm going to go get my toes done or whatever, that's like self-care. So I'm taking care of myself, my body, whatever. If I'm going to go work out, I work out every Saturday. Sunday is soul care. That's when Sunday mornings I go to the beach. That's when I go to the beach and I reconnect and I do the things that are going to take care of me inside. Because here's the funny thing is when you were talking about, why society does that, one of the things is like if you put your hand in front of your face, what happens when people look at you, they look at you through the filters of their own experience. So someone can't understand you if they've never experienced what you're going through.
Right.
And so society, I think a lot of times that's what we fall into is we look at people from the lens of our own quote unquote failures or successes. And Webster says failure is the opposite of success. And I think that that's a bunch of crap. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's an integral part of it. You have to have it. So what lights me up? Failing.
Failure is where a lot of the learning can then begin.
Yeah, that lights me up. When I fail, it's like when I used to teach, I would be in front of these stylists, and my hashtag was mistakes are okay. When you make a mistake, you should be celebrating it. You should like high five it. You're like, oh my God, I made a mistake. It's huge. Like make mistakes, make big, huge mistakes, because from that, you get to learn something.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you'll be sitting in a little tiny box and you'll be the same place that you were. Next year, you'll get to the same place, doing the same thing with the same people, going, well, how come my life is like this?
Right. Well, you know that none of the success comes when we're inside of our comfort zone. We got to jump out, and we've got to. And you know what? We're going to hit some bumps and bruises along the way. And as Steve Harvey said, that parachute might not open. It might not open right away now, but you got to take that jump. You got to take
You
that
have
jump.
to. And here's the thing: your parachute might not open, but you'll find your wings.
You'll find your wings. You talk about self-care Saturday, soul care Sunday. Julie, you mentioned something that as a woman, you are tasked with birthing the world. You are tasked with taking care of everything else. And I think a lot of women find themselves not taking care of themselves. As you mentioned, your Saturdays and Sundays will go. You can't fill the world if your cup is always half empty. You know, you got to refill your cup too. So I don't need to tell you that, but I want to make sure. I mean, you've already identified self-care Saturdays and soul care Sundays. But Julie, if I know you, I know that there are times where your cup goes unfilled, and we have to make sure that your cup is filled too. What are you doing to fill your cup, Julie?
So I have this little routine that I do, and people think I'm absolutely insane, and
Uh-oh.
I will swear by it. If people would try it, just try it. You have nothing to lose except for hand cramps. You have nothing to lose. Sit down. When you wake up, first of all, do not touch your phone for the first hour that you are awake. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. It's only going to just spark all the yucky stuff.
How about this? If you don't touch it, it's still going to be there in an hour,
It's
right?
still going to be there. Your emails are still going to be there. All the things that you want to get away from are still going to be there.
Exactly.
So don't touch your phone. Instead, what I like to do is like to sit down, and I usually do my dog, and she and I sit there, and I write out a gratitude list of 100 things that I'm grateful for.
Okay.
100. And you'll get to like 25 and you'll be like, oh, I don't know and then you look around and you're like, oh, I'm grateful for that poster. And then you can keep going, right? You get to 50 and you're like, I don't know. That's a lot. And I did that the first day and I thought, I got nothing left. This is 50. And then I took like this deep breath and I went, oh, breathing. Oh my God, I can put breathing on there. And then it turned into the way that the sunlight feels on my face as I'm driving down the road when I have the top down on my car. And how a baby smells when you're snuggling with a little baby and it snuggles up to you, the smell of a baby or fresh cut grass. And I mean, the list is endless. Your post office person, all of the people that are in your world, there's an unending supply of gratitude. So when I do that, it really fills my cup.
Okay.
And I spend time with people that feel like sunshine in my life.
Julie, how many different looks do you have? I'm on your Instagram now, and I'm like, that's not even her, but it is. You got 1,000 different looks, and all of them look like you're about 30.
Yeah, I'm 53. I'll be 54 in July. July 4th is my birthday. So
it's your Independence Day, baby.
I'm a little firecracker. So I had lots of looks. When I lived in Chicago, I had the full mohawk, multiple different colors. I live my life in the pursuit of making me happy.
Right.
And I do it from a place that I don't ever want to cause pain for anyone else. I don't ever want to be the cause of someone's pain. However, my sanity and my security and my peace of mind comes above everything else, including my children and my grandchildren. Because if I don't have the peace of mind, if I don't have that full cup, I'm going to be pouring out of an empty cup. And what happens is you attract into your life people who have like a sieve in the bottom of their cup, and you're just like pouring and pouring and pouring, and it's just flowing out of the bottom. You can never be enough for those people. You can never give enough if you don't give to yourself first. It just is the way it is.
And for those people who are a sieve, I mean, that's just the wrong kind of energy that we have to rid ourselves of. But like you said, with your kids and your grandkids, this might sound a bit abrasive, but you're no good to them if you aren't good to yourself. If you're not pouring from that full cup, and the cup, again, the cup is refillable. Let's make sure we understand that. Because we're going to deplete that cup. There are going to be some things, the trifecta, there are going to be some things that really test you. And you got to say, not today, Satan. You got to,
Yep.
not
today.
Right.
And there's a reason why when you get on the airplane, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first. Because if you don't put your oxygen mask on first, how the hell are you supposed to take care of anybody else?
Who the hell are you saving? Right. Exactly. That's what I was going to say. The air is thin. The air is thin. You better get your oxygen. Exactly. So tell me what it looks like. Who comes to you and how do you help? Or what is not your model client, but who is seeking what you are offering?
It's funny. It's women that are either burnt out in the corporate arena, that they know that there's just something that maybe they've always wanted to be an artist, but somebody told them, oh, you can't make money being an artist. So they're burnt out in corporate, or empty nesters, or people that are just ready. They just know that there's something, but they don't know what it is.
Right.
They just know that there's something, but they're not quite sure what it is. And most people are attracted to, because I tell people all the time, your story matters, your voice matters. If you only could see how incredible you are, you would never doubt yourself again. And so a lot of people see the live videos that I do on Facebook, and that's how they come into my world. That's a lot of my one-on-one clients come to me through that, because they're like, oh my gosh, whatever you said in that moment struck me, and I need to know more about you.
Right.
And that's usually how they come to me. And I know that the people who are supposed to come work with me will find me. So I am authentically me. I don't change to bring somebody else into my world. I want the people that will accept me for, and I'm so proud of myself. I filtered myself so well today. I can be a little abrasive. I can drop some words that aren't safe for most days.
Okay.
But that's what makes me authentic. Like my mom, she's like, oh, I don't like that language, honey, but that's just you. And I am who I am. Your approval is not needed. It is not necessary. The people that need to find me will find me, because they know that I will love them hard. I will protect them. I will uplift them. I will empower them. And at the same time, I will hold you accountable. We can be friends outside, but when you're in my container, I'm your coach. I'm not your friend.
So what's next for Julie? What's next for Divine Phoenix?
So Divine Phoenix, I just finished up a challenge today. It was called Chuck It in the Bucket and Move On with Grace and Ease. So we finished that challenge today. The new episode, or the new course, is launching April 11th. It's called Be the Phoenix of Your Own Life, the Feminine Rising. My end game is to be a speaker on stage. That's what I want to do. I want this brand to be global. I want to empower women everywhere. I don't think it just needs to be in this little circle. There's women across this entire planet, and I want to be able to empower anyone that is ready to be empowered. If you're not ready, I won't make any sense to you.
We talked also, I forgot to mention this. Is someone new at the podcasting game?
It launches next Wednesday.
Are you
Like,
ready?
I'm so excited. Like, I did my first episode, got it. I figured out how to edit it. There were lots of bad words that were said. The computer almost
Uh-oh.
went out the window, but I did it. And then I got my second episode done. And then I just did my first interview. So I've got like 3 episodes and I'm getting ready to record my fourth one.
And I'm not your first interview? What?
You were slightly busy doing this, so
I
and
get
it
it. I get it.
and it is called the Feminine Rising, so there is that.
Oh, there is that. All right. Put me into a
However,
corner.
however, what's going to be cool is that I definitely want to have you on there because you bring a different perspective to the conversation.
Well, when that time comes, I will be ready. I'm going to be there for you. And I've never been to Pensacola, but if I'm ever in Pensacola, we're
Oh
going
my
to do
gosh.
lunch or something, you know?
Oh my God, you and Paul and the kids, the door is always open. I will always find room for you guys. Come on down. We'll go hang out at the beach and it'll be fun. It's beautiful down here.
Someone said that to me before, and their door literally was open. Someone in, oh, why can't I say it? Tennessee. We flew into Nashville, Centerville, Tennessee. I met a man on a plane one time. We had a conversation over the course of an hour and a half. His door was always open. He became very, very influential in our life. He passed a few years back, but yes, and his door was open. Julie, what else? Talk to me. I'm going to let you go in a minute, but how do we finish this thing out? Talk to me about your brand. How can people connect with you? What do you want people to know about Julie and Divine Phoenix Rising?
That this is a safe space. That this is a space that you get to, and for the most part, this has nothing to do against you guys. Absolutely nothing. Men are important, and we love you, and we respect you, and we honor you. As women, we are the birthers for society. We birth dreams, we birth children, we nurture. And when we heal the feminine, it allows the masculine to step back and become equal to each other instead of that tug of war that happens. So I want to be able to empower women to heal and to be able to see who they are at their core and to that divine goddess that lives inside of them. And for me, it's one person at a time. It's one woman at a time. And if I can make the change and if I can help empower one woman to feel better and to be able to look in the mirror and love who she is in that moment, my day's complete. My day is
Well,
complete.
we must do a better job. The problem is that there's so much ego behind us as the male species that we cannot yield that space to women. We don't support. We have to do a better job. Simply put, if I were to put it in a nutshell, we absolutely must do a better job of supporting our women. Without, they say without trucks, America stops. Well, without women, humanity stops. So we must do a better job of that. You all are beautiful. You all need to fill your cups. You all are enough. You are enough. Always 100% of the time. I've seen my mother do it. I've seen my mother, come to this country from Trinidad and Tobago. I've seen, her and my father get divorced. My mother had no money. She had no education. She had 2 kids. She couldn't pay for it. She had no job. I've seen eviction notices. I've seen it all. And yet she rises because we have to. And that's what a woman does. A woman rises to each occasion that she must rise to. And as men, and I'm speaking to the men who listen to my podcast and who view my podcast, we must do better. We simply must do better. Julie, you owe me one thing, and that is a second appearance on this podcast. When
I would love that.
Absolutely.
I would love that.
No question.
I'd be absolutely honored.
All right. Now, how do they connect with you on social media, my listeners and viewers?
So Facebook is my name, Julie Paulston, Paulston. And you can find me, friend me, follow me. My page is public. And then on Instagram, it's and it's GR, the number 8, FUL, the number 4, LIFE, Grateful for Life. And then it's at Divine Phoenix Rising is the other one.
So Guys, if you're listening, she just spelled it out for you. If you're watching, it's right on the screen under her. So just type that in. I found her like 2 or 3. You got a few identities. I found you 2 or 3 different ways. So I didn't want to take the time to fill out the questionnaire on Facebook as I was talking to you, but I'm going to get to that as well. Julie, look, thanks for joining the conversation, taking the time to chat with me today. Please hang on. You're going to go backstage. I'm going to finish the show, and we're going to talk about things that, guess what, everybody doesn't need to hear. So I'll see you backstage in a minute.
All right. Thank you.
That will do it, ladies and gentlemen, for today's episode of Conversations with Kurtis. Be sure to connect with me socially at Kurtis Talks on Instagram and Twitter, www.kurtistalks.com. You can also email me with podcast ideas. And if you'd like to be a guest or know of someone who should join the conversation, I don't have a lane I travel in. Whoever needs to be on this show, I want to get them on this show. I want to tell their story. Send an email to kurtisandpaula@gmail.com. That's Kurtis with a K. Don't forget to check out our podcast family of the Kurtis and Paula Show, Take It to Yo with Turner and O'Neill, Ramblin' Teachers, and of course, the Midnight Truck Stop and 911 Radio, hosted by Big Tony and the Blue Knight. You'll find our family of podcasts just about anywhere you get your podcast content. Thanks for joining the conversation today. Feel free to spread the word. And as always, thank you, Khadijah. We'll see you next time.
Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis can be heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Music, and just about anywhere podcasts can be found.
You know, there are few relationships more solid than the bond between a man and his barber. For years, I've gotten my cut with Gene the Barber. Gene has been cutting my hair for more than 20 years. Call him directly at 240-687-7253 and make an appointment. Gene the Barber, 240-687-7253.
A Squared Home and Office Solutions is the go-to source for home or office network and audiovisual solutions. We can help with smart home integration, wireless networking, media rooms, security systems, and more. We will link technology to your lifestyle seamlessly. Visit homeandofficesolutions.com for more info.